Did you ever look at a feature like this on a knife and ask yourself, just why would they do that? To find that out and more, we're going to go over some of your questions on this episode of Knife AQ, episode 201 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. Let's get into it. As you may have guessed from the intro, we do answer your questions on this video, so welcome to it. And if you, in fact, have a question that you think might be a little interesting for a future episode, please leave it in the comments below, and we shall peruse and select from amongst the submissions. Anyway, first question today comes from Jeremy2. Finger choil, to be or not to be? That is the question. And that is a good question indeed, and it is one I have opinions about. First of all, for those of you who, just so we can kind of back up and, kind of follow the evolution of the term here, or if you don't know what a finger choil is, first let's look at this knife right here. This is the Becker BK16. It has this little notch right here at the end of the, or at the heel of the blade. And this is called a number of things. Sometimes it's called a Spanish notch or a drip notch, or probably most technically, or most, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a choil or a sharpening choil. And that kind of really gets to its true purpose here more than anything else. It allows you to get the stone, the sharpening stone, all the way on the edge here without any other bits of the blade geometry interfering with how you sharpen the blade. Now that we know what a choil is, some folks, some manufacturers, over the last couple of decades have enlarged this. They're probably not the first to enlarge a choil in all of knife history, but it has often been referred to as a finger choil, suggesting that you can get your finger up in there for a different way to interface and balance the knife. Now, I think, in my opinion, I like choils. I like, finger choils. They have their uses in small knives and big knives, but everything in between, I would almost universally rather have no choil, or no finger choil, sorry. Here's why. And this kind of example here between the Becker BK16 and the SE4 is kind of a classic matchup. The benefits you gain, I think, from the finger choil here don't outweigh what you lose. And what you lose in this case is either reduction in the amount of sharpened edge you have in the given overall length, because these are virtually identical in overall length, actually tiny bit shorter on the SE, but almost exactly the same, or you lose usable handle length. You lose both in the case of the SE. Not so much on the blade. You lose there's like 1/8 of an inch less sharpened edge on the SE, so it's not a huge loss there. But the difference in handle, that you have on this SE4, even the new contoured versions versus that Becker as an example, is dramatic. I've got just barely a full 4-finger grip on this knife. And I have slightly larger than average hands, so your mileage may vary. Whereas on the Becker, I've got plenty of extra real estate. So even larger handed folks would be able to get their hands on this knife. Yeah, that's not the end, the whole story with them. Obviously the SE handle is more neutral versus the Becker, so there's reasons still to choose either one. But this kind of illustrates where I would just rather have, the maximum amount of sharpened edge and or the maximum amount of handle, given, that these are the same length overall. And that applies, in my opinion, to folders as well as to fixed blades. If you don't agree, that's fine. Where do I do like choils? Bigger knives for one, because in the instance of something like this Tops Armageddon, big, almost 12-inch blade here, or sorry, almost 11-inch blade. So it is, a bigger chopper. And let's say this is what you got. You don't have a smaller knife and you need to get in there and do smaller stuff. Well, this is a very weight forward design. It wants to tip forward. It wants to hit. It wants to smash. By having a larger finger choil like this knife does, you can choke up and really balance the knife out. I mean, if we balance the knife here, it sits just towards the forward portion, as you can see, of that finger choil. If this were me, I might modify it to widen it out just a little bit to get the balance a little better. And also, I have larger fingers too. Therein lies the other disadvantage of finger choils is your finger can be right there next to the sharpened edge, which is not as necessarily secure as if you're behind a nice guard like this. But I do see the advantages in larger blades like this, so you can get in there and do the smaller stuff when you need to, if you need to, with your larger blade. And not to pick on Essie, because I like Essie's knives and I like the people running the company too. I have no problems at all with them. I always find it funny that their biggest knife, the Choils here, did not have a finger choil on it, given that so many of the knives in their lineup do have a finger choil. This one actually balances pretty well when you choke up there, even without the choil. When I did have a Choils, I don't anymore, but I actually modded mine to have a finger choil right there for that balance issue, and it works really nicely there. So big knives, yeah. Smaller knives, there's a definite advantage there. For example, the Civivi Baby Banter, this Ben Peterson design. This KnifeCenter exclusive has S35 VN steel. That's a pretty good price too, I should mention. The cool thing that a finger choil allows you to do in a smaller knife is you have something that when folded, and I'm speaking folders here in particular, you have a small footprint when folded, and yet when open, you can still get a more robust grip on it than you could on a knife that's this small without a finger choil. And sure, there's merit to just maximizing the edge here too, but it all depends on what you want. Do you want a small precision cutter, or do you want the ability to flex a little bit bigger than its size every now and then? That's where I think the utility of finger choils really shine in the context of smaller knives. One more caveat before we move on. The Spyderco Lil Native here is a perfect example of the Spyderco finger choil, which they've been calling that for, I don't know when they first started talking about their signature finger choils here. What they allow you to do is that same thing. They do it on larger knives too, but I especially like it on these small knives. It lets you choke up, get a fuller grip on a small blade, so it can flex bigger than you might think, given its size. I would argue, and have on this channel, I think before, this is not a choil, finger or otherwise, because it does not intersect with the blade. You actually have some guard right here. Am I gonna get all bent out of shape that they call it a finger choil? No, certainly not. And this is one of those areas where, marketing sort of sometimes can confuse knife terminology, I think. We all call this a finger choil. We all call this a Spyderco finger choil, for that matter. Not really a choil, in my opinion. Saber grind is another one of those things. I don't want to get into that barrel of weeds, field of weeds.
We're already in it.
Bush of leaves. This was a rather weedsy, thing, but this is the kind of thing that, knife nerds, if you're new to this channel, we may have gained some subscribers over our SHOT Show coverage the last couple weeks. We geek out about this sort of thing. It's kind of what we do. For slightly less geekery, maybe some of the other videos might be a little less so, but that's my thing on choils. I like them. I like their utility on larger knife designs and smaller knife designs, but everything in between, I would almost universally rather have more handle or more edge. So be it. Anyway, now we come to Damyr's Buried Treasure, our next segment, where we are taking a look at brands we've never shown on this channel before, thanks to Damyr's original question, and we're on letter S, moving through the alphabet today. This was a big, S and T are probably the two biggest sections, but I narrowed it down to Simba Tech. I'm almost positive we've never shown this brand before. They've got stuff like some shaving supplies, some scissors. Those are kind of cool, but it's also kind of more of some other buried treasure stuff you've seen before. So this is what I wanted to show. This is a credit card size cutlery kit. It's like $16. The knife and fork set is what it's called. Very imaginative. You have a small knife with an actual edge right here and a small 3-tined fork. And they're small, but they'll get by in a pinch, and they kind of nest together here. Let me see if I can do this without looking incredibly awkward on camera. They nest together and slide in to this plexiglass case, which is the size of a credit card. I think that's a pretty neat item. Cool travel item and cool just in case item too at, like I said, 16 bucks. Could be an item if you're trying to get over the free shipping threshold we have here at 95 bucks. A cool item like that might get you over the hump, so to speak. That's Damyr's Buried Treasure. Now we come to our lightning round for today. Bronze Jan 4747. Am I weird for preferring liner locks to frame locks? I always end up bending frame locks out of shape by accident. Yes, you're weird. No, I'm just kidding. I always like to say yes when someone says, am I weird for, yes, no. Modern day frame locks that's actually something you typically don't have to worry about anymore. This locking bar here, early frame locks, yeah, you could push them too far and might actually set a bend in it, which would affect the lockup. But as you can see from this knife right here, this is a Shirogorov, I think this is the Ursus. What is this knife? Yeah, the Ursus NL, KnifeCenter exclusive here for $575. Very expensive knife, but you can probably see it, or we'll make sure we can get a good angle. You've got inside a steel plate sitting on, or a steel piece sitting on the titanium that acts as both an interface between the locking bar and the blade, and it also has an over travel arrestor, which means, try as you might, you can't actually push it further out of place, which is kind of cool. I think the bigger reason where some might prefer frame locks over liner lock, or liner locks over frame locks today would be, depending on the design and depending on how you like to grip your knife. If you like to really death grip your knife as you're opening it, putting pressure on that lock bar can actually make it more difficult to open the blade. Whereas on a liner lock, it's covered up. You have a smaller locking interface, so ostensibly not as robust as a frame lock, but there's no chance of that ever happening. That's pretty cool too. KnifeCenter exclusive Best Techman Dundee Magna Cut steel, about $90. The sort of middle ground between those two is something like you see on this Finch frog leg right here. It is a frame lock, but it has these inlays on the back covering up the bar a little bit, and those act as both over travel arresters and something that is going to keep you from, most likely in most grips, actually putting pressure on that lock bar. So that's cool too, and you get to see the nice, beautiful material on both sides as well. Some of these still do wind up having a lock bar interface and an over travel arrestor, but that's why I picked this one, because it does not, because it's all done by the inlay right there, which is pretty cool. And here's another area where I get to throw shade at the marketing machine of the knife industry. Some manufacturers call this a bolster lock. It's a frame lock. It's just covered up a bit by this inlay, so you only see it near the bolster area. I call it a bolster style frame lock just to communicate it, because it's still a frame lock, in my opinion. Anyway, next question. Knife Life 3. Hey, DCA, Thomas, and Seth. I don't see Seth here. We'll have to imagine him. Every time I see a partially serrated edge, I can't help but wonder, why are the serrations always closest to the handle of the knife? Why never the opposite? The plain edge closest to your hand seems like it would be much more practical to me in my uses of the blade. Are there any production knives with this edge configuration? Yes, there are. Many of the Victorinox one-hand opening blades in their standard folding multi-tool lineup, such as the one-hand Trekker right here, come exactly the way you described. So close up here, if you're doing any small work, whittling in the outdoors especially, you can do that. And then you've got the serrated edge out near the tip. Easier for sawing through rope, could make a better steak knife as well. But apart from that, I don't really know of any others that are that really do that. So if you know, drop it in the comment section, people. I'm always eager to learn more. Levi Schlegel asks our next question: what's the difference between regular stainless steel and German stainless steel? I believe it was on a Boker knife that I saw German stainless steel being showcased. Thanks for any info. This is another thing where marketing is going to be what marketing does. And I realize the irony of me saying that, since I'm employed as a digital marketing manager person here at KnifeCenter, but I like to try and cut through the noise every once in a while. This Swiss Tech thing right here, Simba Tech, sorry, even says like, where is it? Stainless steel made in Germany. You might see German stainless steel. There's no such thing as regular stainless steel. And German stainless steel just means it was stainless steel made in Germany. You got to look, further than that. Like, what type of stainless steel is it? It's the same thing with like surgical steel. We've talked about that before on the channel too. Surgical steel sounds good and sounds marketable, but surgical steel is actually a pretty poor cutlery steel for something you're going to carry every day. So I would ignore the exactly what it says there and see what more information you could find about the particular knife you're interested in. And then you'll be able to kind of compare it to what else is out there. Now we come to our final question of the day, which is, of course, our most seriousest question of the day, which comes from Ben Goldstein 26, a most serious question. If the office collectively decided to shave off Seth's mustache, which pocket knife would they use? My lovely, wonderful gentleman of a co-host, Seth V over here, you would really remove his power? It's all, his charisma is all in the mustache, man. I wouldn't do that to him. I wouldn't do that to him. Thomas, what do you think?
I might.
Thomas might. What would you use then? Do you have an answer for Mr. Ben Goldstein here?
Case razor.
Ah, one of the vault pattern from last year?
Sure.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. We may still have a few of those in stock right now, actually. Pause live while we check. We do, in fact. Check it out. We'll put an image right here or a B-roll or something. I didn't even think to bring that. That would have been a good answer to the most seriousest question, so I'm glad you were able to supply it to us.
Gotta do your job now?
Why not? Anyway, that's all we've got for now, folks. Keep your questions coming down in the comments, both the serious and the most seriousest questions, of course. If you've got any alternate answers for any of the questions we talked about below, let me know your opinions on choils and finger choils down in the comments. Leave them down there. If you would like to get your hands on any of these items, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. Where in addition to our long-running Knife Rewards program, you can also break up more expensive knives into some more manageable payment chunks with our new Sezzle option if you wish. That's all for now. I'm David C. Anderson. Keep the questions coming. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off for now. See you next time.